Suffering from dry, tired, irritated eyes? Don't let dry eyes win. Use Systane Pro. It hydrates, restores, and protects dry eyes for up to 12 hours. Systane Pro. Triple action dry eye relief.
Honey, the power's out.
Flashlight's dead. Can't find batteries.
Hey neighbors, want to borrow my Star Patrol spotlight?
That flashlight lights up the whole house.
Watch, the Star Patrol can light up the whole neighborhood. It can illuminate up to a half-mile away.
A half mile? That's insanely bright.
And the Turbo Boost increases brightness up to 100%.
Whoa, now that's insanely bright.
With 10 illumination modes, the Star Patrol is a flashlight, spotlight, floodlight, emergency light, and more. And with an ultra-fast USB power bank, you can even charge your phone with it. Plus, the Star Patrol is fully rechargeable and backed by a 100% satisfaction guarantee.
So how do I get one of these Star Patrols?
Go to GetStarPatrol.com and you'll get it with free Turbo Boost, free shipping, and a money-back guarantee. Again, that's GetStarPatrol.com. GetStarPatrol.com.
You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
This is the CRM Archaeology Podcast. It's the show where we pull back the veil of cultural resources management archaeology and discuss the issues that everyone is concerned about. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to CRM Archaeology Podcast, episode 318. And today we're going to talk about we've done this, we do this every year. We may even do this more than every year. And it's one of those articles that come up and say that our Anthropology has the labor market for, this one in particular is the labor market for recent college graduates. And it delves into what are the majors that have the highest probability of getting hired straight out of college, what is the unemployment rate, what is the beginning, median, and end of salary rates, all sorts of data. And so today we're going to talk about that. First, we're going to talk about how do we look at the data. And then we're going to delve into, from the perspective of an actual, those that are in the field, CRM, and from the university perspective, what does that look like in actuality? And then we'll finish off just wrapping it up, looking at what we're going to look at the end. Bill, what did you say? What was the last thing?
Yeah, so this whole topic comes up pretty much every single year, multiple times a year, and then it's run with. Now, I mean, I think in the old days, there were people who actually wrote these articles, but now I have a feeling it's just like AI bots that just scrape and put spam out on Yahoo News. But it's yet another one of those anthropology is the worst degree in the universe articles. And it's based on information that's coming out of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. And the reason why it caught my eye is because the spam article that I read said that anthropology has the highest unemployment rate and the highest underemployment rate of any other major in universities. And so once again, I have a million questions about all of it. But the last thing I wanted to talk about in the last segment is, where do you even find the archaeology jobs? Because right now it seems like we're going through a demise in the websites that we used to use to find work. They're all going dark now. And so the question is, where do you even get these jobs?
Okay, great. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate that. Picking that up for me. Okay, so, well, I'm kind of doing this backwards, but today joining me is obviously Bill. Hi, Bill.
Yep. Hi, good morning.
And then in Northern California, and Doug in Scotland. Hi, Doug. So Doug he's our numbers, statistics guru. That's his thing. Very well versed, something he's written articles on, and really he knows the meat and potatoes. So I really implicitly trust his opinion on this as far as how valid are these numbers? Let's look at this critically, because I think a lot of people use these articles sometimes as just an excuse to just feel down for a day, half a day. Sometimes I think some people use it as an excuse to not go and just be successful and overcome those things and just go out and work hard. And that's not me not having sympathy for people, but you have to make your own success. So, but let's look at this and see. let's say we have somebody who's they've done all their electives. They kind of now really have to say, this is going to be they have to claim their major. Is this an article they should really be looking at, Doug?
No. That's the short answer. The longer answer is it's actually, so they pulled it from the Fed, New York Fed. The data macro level is really good. It comes from the community survey that's sent to 3 million households each year. So you're roughly 1% of the US population. If you're questioning that as a massive survey, that is overkill. You don't need that many people, but it gets good data at the macro level. I don't want to bore everyone with statistics, but there's sample sizes, there's yada yada. That's an amazing sample size. The problem is anthropology is so tiny, even with a decent sample size for the population of the US, which is 300 million, 1%, that's good. It doesn't quite work for anthropology. Anthropology's only graduating a couple of thousand students, undergraduates each year. It's probably at this point, less than 3,000. I think I looked a couple of years ago, it was about 3,000 or so a year. It might be about 2,500. That's tiny. That's really tiny to even with that sort of sampling. So it's actually really hard. And so you can actually go back, like, you can't find it on the website because they only do 1 year. But if you go back in the Wayback Machine, the Internet Archive, you can check like previous years. And the year before, it was 4.5 or 4.6% unemployment. So like half of what it was. And jobs are not great at the moment, but they're not like we've suddenly doubled unemployment. Year before that, it's 6%. Year before that, it's 2%. It just jumps all around the place. And that sort of jump is what you get when you have a small population that you're not really able to sample. So at the macro level, yeah, 1% of the US population is great. But yeah, I don't even 3,000 people is just such a tiny speck. It's not catching them. So those numbers are going to be all over the place. And like next year, suddenly like unemployment in anthropology is going to drop to 1% or something like that, something crazy. But it's going to be all over the place. So you really shouldn't, those numbers may work for a big, I don't know, I'm trying to think, I'm having a look like mathematics, there's probably like 100,000 undergraduates. It'll work for the larger majors, but it just doesn't work for anthropology. So yeah, it's really easy to get those articles out there being like, hey, and this major sucks. It's the worst one, and throw some official data into it. But it's the wrong sort of data.
How much plays into also the fact that these are it's just anthropology is lumped in with archaeology, so that's even fewer. So our sample size is even smaller. But also, personally, I think it's different with anthropology when you just have an anthropology degree, and let's say there are anthropology degrees and they didn't learn anything about archaeology, and their intent was not to get into archaeology, which does happen quite often, actually. So that brings our sample size down to even smaller. And we're being lumped in with a degree that if you graduated with a cultural anthropology degree and you went and tried to get a job just as a cultural anthropologist, there's far fewer jobs for cultural anthropologists than there are for archaeologists. So that, I think, would skew the number.
Yes. Exactly. Archaeology undergraduates make up maybe 25%. So maybe 500 to 800. So it's even smaller part of that. And yeah, those surveys are great at the macro level, but like for something when you drill down, it doesn't work. It's why I always see people use the Bureau of Labor Management and be like, oh, there's 8,000 jobs in anthropology. And it's a sampling. It doesn't work for such a small, they actually literally say in the fine print, it doesn't work for disciplines under 20,000 people.
Yeah.
And like archaeology, there's some debate, but archaeology, there's more than 8,000, let's say like 8,000 anthropologists. There's more than 10,000 archaeologists alone at the counts.
Yes.
Easily. So you can already just tell it's off, but it won't work because even though we're more than 10,000, we're not, There's some debate about maybe there hasn't been a good count in a while. Maybe we're up to 20,000 archaeologists, but even then, it still is in that fine print where it's basically, oh, yeah, don't use this for any profession under 20,000 people. And yeah, it doesn't work. And it just doesn't, it'll work for, yes, a major computer science that puts out like 100,000 or 500,000 graduates, or psychology or stuff like that, but it just doesn't work for something tiny. It's the wrong tool.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that too. There's other things too with it, but the whole thing was written at school starting right now. And so this is one of those ones that you put on there so that every parent goes nuts. And they talk about, what are you talking about? You're going to go into anthropology. That's the worst thing. I saw a thing online that says that 55.9% of people have underemployment, right? And so the other thing is, if you look at underemployment, what they mean is that folks with those majors are working in a job that doesn't need a college degree. But the recent majors demographic they're talking about is people who are 22 to, I can't remember, but I know that 22 was the age. Think about when you were 22 and had zero experience in anything, if they were hiring you right away to be like a cultural anthropology lead researcher, right? Like, you don't have any experience. Of course, those first few years, you're going to be underemployed because you're going to get whatever job you can get.
Right.
And those jobs probably aren't going to need a bachelor's degree. That is true. But then the question is, 5 years later, 4 years later, are you working in a field that actually values that bachelor's degree? And so we can look at this as far as people who actually become anthropologists, or we can look at it as far as people who actually get jobs that they needed their degree. So those are two different things right there. And then how long did that take? And I would say that most people who have a college degree, because the other thing is, if you look at the other statistics, not on this, but just career-long statistics, it still holds true that people who have a college degree make more money over the long length of their careers. They still have benefits. They find a way to get a job. Now, whether that's actually being a cultural anthropologist or working in user experience from Meta or some of these other ones. I mean, here in the Bay Area, that's like they're sucking up cultural anthropology folks because they want people who understand about cultures so that they can make these apps and other softwares work better. And so folks don't stay unemployed, especially if they have any form of ability to use a computer. I mean, you don't have to code, you don't have to know any of that stuff, but if ethnography and cultural differences and stuff like that you can talk to computer engineers, you're valuable here. And so it would be another question of how long longitudinally, if you look at people who graduate in 2025, how long did it take for them to get a job where they're using their degree? And then was their anthropology experience useful in that career? And I'd have to say, especially if you were working in like human resources or, like I said, one of the other tech focused things, that anthropology degree is going to come through a great value.
So I got a question from somebody who's in the university creating curriculum. Are these departments looking at opportunities to enhance their graduates' capabilities in this area? Are they focusing on being prepared to really contribute significantly to these jobs that you're talking about right now, like in the tech world and AI?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Well, it's so easy for me to just say no.
Yeah.
But the reality is, I mean, academia is a really diverse industry. And there are professors in labs that are really doing groundbreaking research, and the students who learn from those professors or work in those labs, yeah, they do have a leg up. They are going to walk away with really valuable market skills and experience and even access to data and software that will help them greatly. So it's hard to say, no, they're not doing anything. But I would say, just in general, no, academia is not thinking about, it's in a crisis right now. It's spazzing out about losing money because they spent their entire time basing everything on making more money. So now when that money's threatened, they're freaking out. But in a lot of ways, the mission to the student has melted away the same way that the student's goal of learning and expanding their mind and becoming a creative knowledge creator, that's also melted quite a bit because people are borrowing so much money. They're like, I must make enough to pay this back. I don't have time to really think about Chaucer or learn more about the Sapir-Whorf theory. I just must pay back the $98,000 I borrowed for this degree. And so I don't have any time for anything that doesn't feed into that. And so folks are really pragmatic, and instructors are caught in a crossroads where it's mostly people who never worked in any industries that are really smart, that have worked in academia forever, and everything's changing now. And so there is a lot of push for folks to go into trades, which if you've been an archaeologist and you've been an archaeology technician, you'll know the value of your degree once your back and wrists and body start to break down after a few years of working in the trades. I mean, I think that's a dead end there. A lot of those people in the trades, they're going to need a college degree if they want to have benefits ever in the future. But I would say that the university in general is not thinking about that. It's in some kind of existential thing that if it started to serve communities, I have a feeling there would be more allies. But right now, it's really about like, how can we keep the doors open? Are we all going to get arrested for even talking about things like gender and what's going to happen next? And so that's where the focus is right now. But historically, it's been on people who don't know industry teaching things that they know, which is their one site in Peru.
Yes. Good point. Yep. Well, with that, we're going to go on to our next segment. We'll be right back.
Suffering from dry, tired, irritated eyes? Don't let dry eyes win. Use Sustain Pro. It hydrates, restores, and protects dry eyes for up to 12 hours. Sustain Pro. Triple action dry eye relief.
Honey, the power's out.
Flashlight's dead. Can't find batteries.
Hey neighbors, want to borrow my Star Patrol spotlight?
That flashlight lights up the whole house.
Watch, the Star Patrol can light up the whole neighborhood. It can illuminate up to a half-mile away.
A half mile? That's insanely bright.
And the Turbo Boost increases brightness up to 100%.
Whoa, now that's insanely bright.
With 10 illumination modes, the Star Patrol is a flashlight, spotlight, floodlight, emergency light, and more. And with an ultra-fast USB power bank, you can even charge your phone with it. Plus, the Star Patrol is fully rechargeable and backed by a 100% satisfaction guarantee.
So how do I get one of these Star Patrols?
Go to GetStarPatrol.com and you'll get it with free Turbo Boost, free shipping, and a money-back guarantee. Again, that's GetStarPatrol.com. GetStarPatrol.com.
Welcome back to CRM Archaeology Podcast, episode 318. And Doug and Bill and I are talking about the yearly anthropology degree has the lowest numbers. It sucks. Don't do it. Parents saying, why are you could do this or you could be a musician. They're both just as bad. Okay, so we already got past what really is that data, something we want to look at. What's the reality of it? And now we're going to jump into how do you get past that data and use the information and the skills that you learn in college to get a good degree. And Doug, let's start off with you. You had some thoughts.
Yeah, well, so the data is dubious, but even if we had great data, let's say it actually showed anthropology was not great or archaeology, I'm not sure how much a difference it makes. I've sat in those university things as the employer side, and a parent will always stand up and ask you, what's the things like? And some years it's good things, mainly from a UK perspective, they'll be like, oh yeah, we said this report, there's going to be tons of jobs. And then during the Great Recession, it was like, well, no, there's not a lot of jobs, but yeah, there's not a lot of jobs everywhere, all this sort of stuff. But I don't know, I kind of feel like a lot of these sort of articles, I say this as someone who gathers a lot of data and think data is super important and people should make judgments and decisions off of it. I don't think most people do. I kind of feel like a lot of these sort of things are like ink blot tests. It's like, what do you see at this thing? And people sort of decide to see what they want to see. And I don't know. I feel like most people are like Han Soloing it, never tell me the odds sort of thing. I don't know. Maybe Bill, as like someone in university, you might see it, or maybe you wouldn't because like they've already made that decision and not gone to uni. But I don't know. Like I see this. I see people on social media, Facebook, Twitter, now I guess called X, whatever. And they use it as like a data point. This is my point. We're poorly paid or crap, or if it says we're good, I guess we're good. It just seems like pointless point scoring on social media, but I'm not sure it changes anything. Have you guys ever seen anyone like change their mind, look at one of these things and be like, oh, yeah, well, I was going to be an archaeology major, but then I saw this Yahoo News article and a veterinary school instead. Have you ever run into anyone who's done that?
I have.
Well, and I see something else where it's like folks get in and the anthro's one of their majors and they're like, but I'm going to be a doctor. And it's, you're going to have to take out $400,000, but I'm going to be a doctor. But you know that you may make a lot of money, but your student loans alone, because they're not even subsidized federal loans, are going to be out, but I'm going to be a doctor. I am doctor. I will be doctor. And it's like, they're just walking forward. It's, what about medicine really intrigues you? I don't know. I want to help people. And so, why don't you be a social maker? No, doctor. And so I've met people that are just like you will never get in their head like, I will be lawyer. Lawyer makes money. I do law. I am lawyer. They just can't even get past. You can see how they were just sitting there sometime when they were about 13 years old. And we're like, yeah, I'm probably smart enough to go to college. I guess I'll probably go to the best college. Now, what is a degree that makes the most money that my mom and dad will be so happy that I did? I know, doctor. And so they're just like, yeah, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a doctor. And I think maybe after they meet me and decide they don't want to do archaeology, they get in there and they might realize, wow, this totally sucks. But I never see them again after that they've already gone to med school or they're already in law school. I never see the end result where it's like, yeah, I stopped and then I just started selling solar panels because like I can make the same amount of money. And I don't hear that part, but I do hear extreme resistance to any form of discussion about, I mean, they may love archaeology, take every one of my classes and then still proceed on to whatever degree, because in their head and they're always the most highest paying, computer engineering, this and that, right? All the top 5 most high paying degrees, no matter how you get laid off perpetually in computer engineering, every 8 years when they make those bad bets, they just start to shed 16,000 people from Google. No one will ever listen to, you can get ahead the same difference as you did in something like cultural resources or forestry or like nutrition, a whole bunch of other stuff. You don't have to be a medical doctor. You can be a nutritionist. You can be an RN, right? Anyway, I see just a stone wall where people refuse to think of anything besides the highest paying thing they possibly can go into.
Yeah, I agree. I think so many people have the same attitude when they're about to enter college, and the same as when they enter the workforce. And that's a problem. So now I think there's responsibility on the university's side, but also to prepare people mentally, also skill set, of course, but mentally to prepare themselves for the workforce. I know there's some programs, I know you're different, Bill, in how you approach teaching students, but I think a lot of students, Andrew's different, but a lot of students don't get this like real world instruction in, okay, now you've learned this for the last 4 years, how are you going to go and get a job with it? But it's also the responsibility of the student. And if you have the attitude that you're going to go in university and you're just blindly going into it with your own perceptions, which you know very little about, and you're doing it based on what you see on the internet, that's just everything, the information that's put out there is put out there to get clicks. It's not necessarily accurate. If you're not actually taking, the control of your own life to go and really get good data and good information to make good decisions, if you don't change that over time, you're going to do that through your whole life. You're going to be wandering around, wondering why you're not successful. So the same attitude, I would say the same attitude that when you start college and in making your decision of what you're going to pursue versus when you go into the workforce has got to be solid. It can't just be like waving around, just kind of looking at the lowest hanging fruit, trying to get information to make your decisions. You have to go in and get that information and know what you're learning is accurate. Another is whether somebody's going to be successful, quite honestly, if somebody's a go-getter, they're going to be a go-getter whether they go and get a college degree or they don't. For me, I really believed, and I'm somebody who went back to college later in life because the opportunities that I had early in my life, in my early 20s, that opportunity did not require a education. And I really do not believe I've been a lifelong learner. My father and my grandmother have PhDs. My grandmother had a PhD in the 30s. I mean, way before women were doing that. My mom she was a degreed. Everybody in my family was degreed. And so I came from that ethos. And I really believe that unless you knew you were going to learn something specific, I didn't see the value in the education, because for me, one of the other aspects of education is you've made it through 4 years. You've dedicated your life to doing something and you have accomplished it. And now you have a degree to prove it. I had already done that in my life. I was in competitive sports, and that effort my entire young life led to working in professional sports. And so I didn't need that. I already had that. So for me, why should you get a college degree? First, are you learning a skill that you can't otherwise? Second, is the degree something that is required in order for you to get the job? Like in order to get licensed, or in order for you to be perceived that you know what you're doing, is that college degree required? And then the other is you need to make sure that the degree that you're getting is actually going to provide the skill set you need to get a job. And that, I think, is not discussed enough. So it's not just which major should I be taking, but then which college is actually going to prepare me for that major. So if I go to a college that is well known for medicine, but has and is, let's say, John Hopkins, right? And I don't know the anthropology department at John Hopkins. So, I'm not going to say it's a good department or otherwise, but let's say they have a department and it's not a good department, but I want to have that John Hopkins behind my name and behind my degree. That's not going to be helpful because it's not going to teach you the skills that you need. And also within the discipline of archaeology or anthropology, it's also not a respected college where those that are hiring know that you are going to be prepared at least to start in the workforce, that they're obviously we have to train, but how much are we going to have to train in order to get you ready to be profitable and successful?
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with that too. But, another thing too that I try to tell folks is no matter what you study in college, that's not going to be your career. Your career is going to be made of a bunch of jobs across your entire life. First of all, by finishing college, you're going to live a lot longer than you think. Just straight up outcomes in most countries, Western countries, of people who graduate from college, you're going to live 5 to 10 years longer than other people without a college degree. And then just the way things are working, folks are living longer, right? So you're going to live a lot longer than you think. And I know you're in your 20s or maybe even your 30s, and you're just looking at what's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years. But there's no way you can predict what's going to happen over your entire life. And I'm a person who has lived more than one career. Even before I went to college, I already had several careers. And so those are things that I could have done for many years and got benefits, retirement, everything. I could have stuck with it with those corporations. I could have kept rolling. But instead I switched and went to something else, or I got laid off, or the company got sold and went bankrupt, right? So those are the kind of things that are beyond your control, that there's no way that you'll know. And just like you were saying, the key is to learn those skills that'll help you roll on to the next thing. And it doesn't matter if you do go into medicine, archaeology, anything. It doesn't matter what you do. If you're not growing and learning skills yourself and being a lifelong learner, like you said, then you're always going to find yourself as this person who's laid off, struggling, doesn't know what to do, and then scrambling to find the same thing that you did before, only to find, for most of us, our careers are gone, right? Like those companies are gone. That region no longer does that anymore. The jobs have moved to somewhere else. So I encourage people to think more about your entire, like what you want, the role you want work to play in your life, what kind of a life you want to live. And just know that some kind of lives, you are going to have to make more money. I mean, it just, the things that you want, your dreams are more expensive than other people's dreams. And then other jobs, other things that you want in life, travel or fulfillment or space or to live in a city or something like that, those are not difficult to achieve. You can achieve those with a lot of different jobs, and your degree is going to help you in a lot of those, right?
Yes.
So networking is critical. Knowing like how you feel in a place is critical, because I know a lot of people who end up doing archaeology and they've hated it. They go into cultural resources. it was not for them, or they go into museums and they just can't handle this situation of the job. And they work so hard to get there only to realize that this is not the career for them. So don't be afraid, move on. How can you maneuver to what you want?
Right.
So those are the kind of things I tell people, that the degree is just a thing. It's another ornament on the uniform that is you. And people will look at that, and some will supervalue it, and some will be jealous and envious, and others won't care at all. Well, it's just one of the many things that you have. And so by saying that anthropology majors or graduates are underemployed, I mean, once again, that's only a temporary state. Some people may be underemployed because they work part-time because they have a family or an elder to take care of, right? Or they just don't want to work that much. They want to have more time, and they want to have more of a minimalist life. And so who are we to say that's underemployment? But then other people are underemployed because there's no jobs in their area, and they live in the middle of Idaho, and there is no CRM. There's nowhere to go. They must move to Seattle, San Francisco, somewhere else if they want to try that career. That's just all there is to it. So they will be unemployed in Buell, Idaho.
Yep. I think the one thread here is you have to know yourself, and you're not going to know yourself fully at any point in your life. It's an evolution, right? But when you're looking at, okay, what degree am I going to get into? What kind of job do I want? Really delving into what does it mean to be somebody in CRM, and ask multiple people. Try to get as much information as you can. These podcasts is a good way. We all have a different perspective on CRM, but there's a few things like CRM, just looking at that world, archaeology or public archaeology, the non-cultural anthropology. There are people that I have friends that just want to have that sure job. I have a couple friends that work for California State Parks, and I think, oh my gosh, they'd be great. I would love to hire them. But some of these programs have set up like a loan forgiveness, right? And so they know the way it's set up is they have to work for many years in order to have their loan forgiven, their student loan forgiven. And so they're locked in. And I cannot convince them to get out of it. I'm thinking to myself, please let me show you the numbers. You could make up and pay off your loan. But they get stuck in this idea that I've already paid so much and now all that's wasted. But it's not if you look at the numbers. But that's okay. Aside from that, some people just want to know the sure job in front of them. Some people are more entrepreneurial, and they really do, either they want their own business or they want to really be the master of their own destiny, where some people really want to know that this is the trajectory. In 5 years, I'm going to be here. In 5 years, I'm going to be there. That's not always certain, even though it looks certain in front of you. But there are some jobs where that's really going to be more certain than others. And I don't think that's a bad thing. If that's who you are and you're more comfortable in life with that, great. But that's not for everybody. It's definitely not for me, because that, even though it's a sure thing, it's also a sure thing. And what do I mean by that? I mean that no matter how hard I work, I am only going to be this in 5 years in those kinds of jobs.
Yeah, but I mean, also that takes life design, right? Like lifestyle
exactly
design.
What you're saying.
And so, what the design of someone who wants to just kind of sit there is thinking that they just want this to stay this way, and incrementally they'll just get more money from their job. But like, as far as a human, all they really want is just to be more nested in an area. And that is totally fine. However, like if you want to become nested in an area, you're going to have to think a little bit more differently about like, how can you maintain the nest, right?
Exactly.
So what happens if the job does go away, right? Well, hopefully you have another thing you can roll onto, or you live in an area where you can maintain the nest. Because if you just super want to live in this area and you want to stay there, awesome. But you got to have something else, in your mind's eye that will keep you in that area. If you just want a job that's at a certain position, then you need to be able to always get that position no matter where you're at in the country, because there's no guarantee that position will stay there at that company. So if you want to nest in the job position and just be the curator, then how are you going to become the one curator that like everyone in the world super wants, so that you never have to be anything else but the curator? And all of those things are great. Like they are, but you still have to kind of be thinking a little bit more proactively and vividly about, how can I keep this thing that I want? Like, how can I keep my comparative stability when everything's changing around me. And then
You
some
have to
people are like, no,
monetize
I
yourself.
just, well, some people are like, well, maybe not that as much as be able to clearly demonstrate the benefits that you have.
Yes.
Right. And sometimes it's not money.
No, I'm not saying money for them. I'm saying you have to monetize your skill set so it's attractive to those that are hiring. And so
yes.
that is, and for me, and we'll finish out the segment with that, when I'm trying to do something new in the company I work for, and it's something they've never delved in before, I know the one thing I have to do in order for them to sign off on it, I have to monetize it. I have to show the bottom line. Why is this going to improve our revenue? And that's, I mean, it's a business after all. So that's my job, is I got to figure out how to monetize it. And as a person, in order to be attractive to businesses, you have to figure out how to monetize yourself. And with that, we're going to go on to segment 3.
Honey, the power's out.
Flashlight's dead. Can't find batteries.
Hey neighbors, want to borrow my Star Patrol spotlight?
That flashlight lights up the whole house.
Watch, the Star Patrol can light up the whole neighborhood. It can illuminate up to a half-mile away.
A half mile? That's insanely bright.
And the Turbo Boost increases brightness up to 100%.
Whoa, now that's insanely bright.
With 10 illumination modes, the Star Patrol is a flashlight, spotlight, floodlight, emergency light, and more. And with an ultra-fast USB power bank, you can even charge your phone with it. Plus, the Star Patrol is fully rechargeable and backed by a 100% satisfaction guarantee.
So how do I get one of these Star Patrols?
Go to GetStarPatrol.com and you'll get it with free Turbo Boost, free shipping, and a money-back guarantee. Again, that's GetStarPatrol.com. GetStarPatrol.com.
Welcome back to CRM Archaeology Podcast, episode 318. This is our third and last segment. And we've been talking about the typical yearly article about what's the prospects with archaeology or anthropology in the job market, numbers wise. And now we're going to delve into, we've talked about what's the validity of the data. Then we're talking about how should you look at your work choices, your degree choices, then your work choices, how to be successful overall, evolving throughout your career. And now we're going to talk about where are the jobs? And Doug, that's a question. So I'm going to let you pose it how you want to pose it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talked all about careers and working in archaeology, but over the years, the clearinghouses, the places that we use, the listservs and the websites to find the jobs are melting away. For the longest time, archaeologyfieldwork.com was like the dictionary of archaeology jobs. And I even worked for companies. I mean, they just had pretty much memberships to the website, constantly looking for techs and crew chiefs and PIs and stuff. And so they were constantly putting all our job posts on there. And now we're down to shovel bums. But then I was just looking on it before the podcast, and I couldn't really find very many jobs because I was really looking for the entry level wage data, what is actually being offered right now. And I couldn't hardly find anything. And so I'm just asking everyone in the room, where do you find archaeology jobs anymore?
Well, we do not, as a company, we post on our website, of course. And then I don't know exactly where they put them because I don't do it, but I do know they put them on LinkedIn. I know that when I'm on LinkedIn, I see a lot of things that are popping up as a match for me. And so I do think LinkedIn is a good option. I think another is for those that are starting off, you really have to go, and I think it'd be great if professors did this, figure out what are the companies that have CRM or have archaeology or anthropology service lines. And these are hidden. People don't, when they're getting out of college. So you tell me, Bill, when you're getting out, are you telling people don't just look at the typical CRM, CEQA, let's say in just California, the CEQA environmental firms? Are you telling them to look at engineering firms too? Because sometimes these are services that are included in an engineering firm, but it's not a front service. It is an add-on service. So it's kind of hidden on the websites. And so it wouldn't be instant, like people that are starting off in the workforce are not going to know where to look. I would say I think it'd be great if universities were doing this, right? Kind of doing a little bit of work for the students, or maybe having TAs do it, and looking around at all the environmental firms and engineering firms. There's other businesses that are now starting to add archaeology because they're realizing most clients want a one-stop shop. They want to go to one company. They don't want to have to deal with having a CRM company on the side and a biology company on the side. And they want one, whether that means it's the civil engineering firm that goes and hires subs. That's fine. They don't care. Although some may care because there's always a markup on subs, right? Or do they want just have somebody that has all the services under one umbrella? And that is the ideal. Now, the companies have to look at how can we make money on this? Do we want to put a whole lot of effort into a whole other service line? That's a decision they have to make. But just to let those that are listening that are early in their career, don't just be looking at the obvious. You have to look at all these other different service lines. There's architects that are starting to come out with CRM. There's larger architecture firms, but even utilities, private utilities have their own.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to answer the question, I usually aim for people to go to the American Cultural Resources Association website and to click on their state, because that's where you're already going to college. So see if there's anything right by you. Click on the states and it'll list folks that are registered with that. And then that's kind of where I end, because in the past there was jobs on Shovel Bums and the other websites, but now that's like melting away. And my problem that I have with LinkedIn, years ago, Doug and I wrote an ebook, and I talked about careers in archaeology and looking at the data from LinkedIn. Since then, LinkedIn has just turned into just social media spam and scam bots. And it's just loaded with data capture scams that are not real jobs, that people are scraping actual archaeology jobs and other stuff to get people to submit applications with what's your requested pay rate, what's all this different stuff. There actually is no real job and there is no real human. It's just a software that's just bloating it. It's also full of a bunch of humble brag / grind life junk that's posts about people working their asses off for no reason and just wasting their life, but pretending that they're hardcore. Anyway, LinkedIn has just turned into the same scum that all those social media, man, like all that stuff subtracts life. It doesn't add any life. And so I refrain from telling students anymore to go on LinkedIn, even though I tell them to put their stuff on LinkedIn so that they have something real in the internet that's not just like kitten photos and them hanging out at the bar. Like I want them to have something that's actually connected, but I tell them like, you can kind of use LinkedIn kind of, but it's not what it once was. So that's why I'm asking everyone, like, where do we all go from here?
Yeah, I was going to add sort of the list for people to look at. Go to your SHPO or TIPO, your local one, or the nearby states. They'll have a list of people who are permitted to do archaeology, and relatively, they're usually kept pretty up to date. And so that's a good list. I mean, there'll be a lot of overlap with ACRA as well, but maybe not necessarily.
Yeah.
The other thing, though, is don't spam these organizations. Do a bit of research ahead of time. I say this as someone who manages the email for FAME, which is basically the ACRA for the UK. And we get like occasionally job people sending resumes and stuff off. And if you had just gone to our website and spent 20 seconds, you would have understand we don't hire or employ people.
Right.
It's our members who do. And some of those people on the SHPO list will be like a 1 or 2 person band, like a single person. They're not hiring. Do a little bit of research. If you can't find a website for them, they probably are just a single person. Don't go out there and start spamming people, because also it's your reputation later. People will remember, oh yeah, I remember this person just had no clue and annoyed me by constantly spamming me asking for jobs. But the SHPO ones are likely to catch a lot more of those engineering firm, like Heather, you're probably listed in, I don't know, 30 SHPO offices.
That's what I was going to say. There are some, and yeah, we're in a majority of the states in the U.S., but I know that some of these SHPO offices keep a list. Some have a list that actually you have to pay to be on. And a lot of these lists aren't even, you have to go out and ask for them. So there's different ways of getting them. So it's not going to be real obvious. There are some that have it listed, and we do get some business from that where people, but if it's a paid list, I have to decide whether or not I'm going to pay to be on that list, because most businesses or clients don't even know that's where they should look to find a qualified archaeologist. And so is it really worth it? Depends on how much it is, if it's worth being on that list. Because I'll tell you that the clients that we get off of there is minuscule compared to the other ways that we get clients. So the list is just one other option. As far as ACRA goes, and I have my thoughts on ACRA, but they may change, but we're not on ACRA. So that would be another. And then I did want to talk about the LinkedIn. So Bill kind of talked about it a little bit. I agree with you. Yes, it has changed considerably. I wish it was more about business and learning. I liked LinkedIn when there were people that were really posting articles that were helpful to you growing in your knowledge in your discipline and others' disciplines. It's not like that as much anymore. It's a lot of bragging, you're right. But it is essential that you have a profile and that you keep your profile up, because I will tell you that when I put an ad out and I have a job ad out, both the recruiters at our company and private recruiters, a large percentage of their efforts to finding candidates for us is combing through LinkedIn. So it's not enough to just have a profile up there. You need to keep your profile up. If you're open to work, you got to keep your profile up. And also be very careful about the scammers. You get scammers, recruiting scammers too. Also, another thing I would say is just be careful, because these recruiters will also friend you or try to connect with you, right? I should say friend you. I don't know what's called on LinkedIn, but they'll try to get a connection with you. So you don't have to do that to message with them. You can message and not accept them as a connection. So because your profile also shows what kind of industry experts that you're connected with. So if you're only a recruit, if you have a majority of recruiters, that's also not usually a good indicator. So, but I think that the SHPO lists are good. But I think you should go out and try to be creative, because those are the ones that are low hanging fruit. Everybody's going to be looking and reaching out to those companies. Go and look at the companies that maybe aren't on those obvious lists. You may have a better opportunity. You may be able to differentiate yourself from the hundreds of emails that they're getting. And I will say, we have job ads out and we have a lot of people that are applying to them. Now, they're not all appropriate for the job, but we do get a lot of applications.
Yeah, I just thought of this. Man, I hope this isn't a bad suggestion, but now I'm really starting to think about just running it through AI. I wonder if there's a way for you to put a bot on LinkedIn and just harvest it all and then use AI to separate scammers who probably used AI. Hey, AI, can you detect your own self? Okay, get rid of the bullshit. All right, these are actually written by real companies with real humans behind them, and the rest of it is just gibberish. I wonder if AI can play a role.
Sure, it can. I wouldn't know how to do it, but it's not my area of expertise. But I do think it should be able to. But, if something doesn't sit well with you when you're looking at job ads, use your own gut. There's enough out there that you can apply to without applying to ones that don't pass the gut test.
Yeah, sort of along those lines. You can also I think what's being highlighted here is a bit of what your search determines what you find as well, or what finds you. And I think it's okay to have a think about that. And in a way, it could be a good signal as well. So I technically have a LinkedIn account, but it's actually not, I have to have it for work. I manage a page or a group, whatever they call it on LinkedIn. Tells you how much I love LinkedIn. I don't even know the right terminology. But really, I'm basically hidden on LinkedIn. And that was a conscious decision quite a while ago to do that. It essentially means, I've never been contacted for any of those headhunters looking through LinkedIn profiles and stuff like that. So in a way, it is limiting, but part of it was a conscious choice that people who recruit that way were not necessarily the sort of organizations I wanted to work for. It's sort of like the same thing when if you see a job advert and they're not willing to share many details and they're not willing to put up wages and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
It's a bit, occasionally I've seen a very few exceptions to why that should be. But it is one of those things where it's hard. Like sometimes it's you really need a job, especially if you're at the field tech level and you need to move around or other things. But at a certain point, it can be a bit about you don't want to work for that organization. I was thinking back, oh, Bill, maybe you remember this episode. It was like 10 years ago, we talked about resumes. And like one thing, it was advice. And one of them was like, if you have a non-white sounding name, sometimes you just go with an initial. But the converse part about that is like sometimes actually you just throw your name out there and you know you're going to get rejected, but those are maybe not the employers you want to work for anyways.
Yeah.
So I think part of it is, you're looking around, but also the flip side is maybe you don't want to work for the employers that are sending out like a dozen adverts on shovel bums or something like that. If you have the chance, and this is not for everyone, because many times you don't, but as you start to develop your career and you have opportunities and you can sit back and you have a bit more choice, you can start to think about where you're looking for jobs. Maybe you're purposely not choosing LinkedIn because you don't trust anyone who's going to pick up people off of LinkedIn.
I think, just from somebody who's hiring a lot, I think that I do like us looking, especially for mid-career. It's hard for me to find where these people are. Sometimes people don't know that they're ready to move on until they get somebody who reaches out to them. So a lot of the candidates that I'm looking at for different levels in their career. Now, in the beginning, that's different, like entry level, that's different. But if it's a mid-year career and I'm looking for somebody who's strong, who can manage, who's trainable still, that wants to evolve in their discipline and their career, LinkedIn is a good place to start. But unfortunately, I know that we lose people. We lose people because people don't update their profiles. But there's enough people in there that I can see, okay, I can look, and I'm pretty good at looking at what somebody has, not only from their LinkedIn profile, but then also once we contact them and they send us their resume, being able to really weed through the crap in a resume to see, okay, is this really a good candidate? And so that's also something I want to say for people that are in your mid-year or mid-career. Don't BS on your resume. Be real who you are, because those that are hiring, we've seen it all. We can tell if you're BSing, right? And you are doing yourself a disservice. So just the other thing that I would like to say is for somebody, because we're talking a lot about entry level, because that's where it's almost not that much in your control. But for instance, this last position that I had, I was working for another company. We were serving as a sub to the company I work for now. When I decided, because I had actually, the impetus wasn't, there were things that I wasn't thrilled about, but the impetus for me was a few companies reaching out to me and pursuing me. And then me looking at those people, those companies that were pursuing me and say, okay, for my next move, because I'm a real loyal employee, for my next move, I would like not to move again. So if I am going to do that, who am I consciously going to pursue myself? Not just who's pursuing me and filling my ego, right? How am I making a conscious decision? And when I did that, I'm the one who made that position for myself. So the company I work for now, they did not have a cultural resource service line, and they weren't even pursuing it. And so I thought to myself, okay, if I'm going to move, I'm going to move to a company that I like that company. I want I like the ethos of that company. I like where they're going. I like everybody I've worked with in that company. For 11 years, we were subbing. Everybody that I've dealt with there, for the most part, I've enjoyed working with. And there's a common thread that attracted me in the way they approach business. And so I went to them and I said, hey, you guys ready to start a service line? I know there's enough work out there. And they're like, hell yeah, let's do it. So sometimes you have to make your own, future. And so that's kind of a unique situation, but those things do happen. And it's just an example of you have to take your own career. You have to take control over your own career. You can't be sitting back passively and just waiting for people to come to you, because then when they do come to you, it's a little skewed, the information that you get, or a lot skewed, the information you get. And then personally, it's ego driven. They're courting you. They really want you. That's a nice feeling. But then when you get there, is that going to continue, right? Are you really going to be able to build your career there and stay there for a long period of time? So
similar along Heather's, which she just said, bringing it back to what I said about shipper lists and when we're talking about ACRA and things like that, I think you can use those lists also for market intelligence or pick it out. Like maybe you do want to work at a small family shop where it's half a dozen people or something like that. I think some people might think of looking at those ACRA and SHPA lists and let's just hit everyone on those lists. I mentioned don't spam the small ones because they're not hiring, but be a bit more thoughtful in what as well.
Yes.
Do you like working for large organizations because they'll keep you employed throughout the entire year, even though that might mean like you're in Alaska 1 month, Alabama the next, and then Arizona the next after that. That's a different thing, but you have different choices. And I would definitely say don't just hit the email that you get off that list. Have a chance to look at those companies, see if they're the work you like to do. Sometimes they'll talk, maybe they're more survey and that's what you want to do. Maybe they're more excavation. There's things like that. Look at their reports. So in the UK, that's all easy to do. They're all free. Sometimes you have to sign up. In the States, usually you have to go to the SHPO and get permission to access. But if you can access and see their work or their reputation, ask around, drop some lines to friends, see if anyone's worked for them, what they like, what they dislike. I would say try to do just a little bit more research. And as Heather was saying, be more conscious in your career. Don't let it happen to you. And one way to do that is, research and choose your employers or the people you would like to be employed by. You still have to get the job. You still have to apply. But, be selective if you can.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, all of that stuff feeds into the networking is the most critical piece. And whether that's just collecting information on folks, or I encourage students to find companies that come to campus and talk, and then see if you can get another separate conversation with the people who are generous enough to come and talk at the university. That's a critical thing.
Yeah.
But then also, while you're a student, while you can't work full time, is a critical time where you can do like kind of interviewing information. I just want to know more about what it's like to do CRM, and I'm in college and I want to know, do I need field school? Do I need this? How did you get your career? All of those things really help. And then they'll remember you when you're getting closer to graduation and you're like, yeah, hey, I'm graduating now. It's been a couple of years. Do you know of any companies in the area working? Like they'll remember you, and you'll also be building a connection of different folks that you have their email, like you've talked to them on the phone and you kind of have introduced yourself. So I think that's more and more important with so much scams and junk on the internet, to do the networking and the research that Doug was mentioning. You can do it by talking to them face to face, but building your network, that's a big thing. And one of the things that I grapple with is whether I should accept the invitations on LinkedIn of my students. Definitely not the ones who are still enrolled, but I'll leave that. That's where I want to end this. Should I accept? I mean, we can have people who listen to the show, if you made it to the end, send a message. Should the professors accept their students after they've graduated as LinkedIn connections, right?
Can I give my opinion on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I think you should. And the reason I think you should is for selfish on your part. If nothing else, it's nice to see who these students that you've invested so much in, it's nice to see their success. I am connected with some professors on LinkedIn that I had, and it's been wonderful for me. And actually, when I taught for the small amount of time that I taught, I'm connected with some students, and it's wonderful to see their success. And also, as a professor, I think it's good for a professor to be able to see the trajectory of your students, and especially ones that are successful, because I think that would help you in being able to keep your finger on the business side of things, in the career side of things. And it gives you another perspective from people that are actually in the workforce at that time. So I think it's a good data collector. It's a good feeling to be able to know that people are being successful. But also, of course, you want to be careful, because not all students, just like anybody in life, you don't want to be connected to everybody. Some are weirdos, or they're not nice people, or whatever. Yeah. So, well, with that, I think this is a good discussion. And I just want to encourage everybody that I actually loved what Doug said. Don't let your career happen to you. Create your career for yourself. Really be conscious, making decisions about how you're going to grow yourself, but what you're going to pursue, and acknowledging you're not going to know everything, because that can be daunting to say, how am I going to create a career for myself when I don't know what the heck I'm doing? Do it in steps and be willing to evolve over time. That, what you perceive as a good career now may change as you bring in more information. But first and foremost, be conscious about your decisions, because in the end, that's how you're going to be successful, not allowing somebody else to create a career for you, because they're not going to. They'll be sitting around wanting to create a career for you. You have to do it for yourself.
That's it for another episode of the CRM Archaeology Podcast. Links to some of the items mentioned on the show are in the show notes for this podcast, which can be found at www.archpodnet.com/CRMArchPodcast. Please comment and share anywhere you see the show. If you'd like us to answer a question in a future episode, email us. Use the contact form on the website, or just email chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com. Support the show and the network at archpodnet.com/members. Get some swag and extra content while you're there. Send us show suggestions and interview suggestions. We want this to be a resource for field technicians everywhere, and we want to know what you want to know about.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the field.
Adios.
See you around.
The Archaeology Podcast Network is 10 years old this year. Our executive producer is Ashley Airy, our social media coordinator is Matilda Siebrecht, and our chief editor is Rachel Roden. The Archaeology Podcast Network was co-founded by Chris Webster and Tristan Boyle in 2014 and is part of Cultura Media and DigTech LLC.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.